Hello everyone, and welcome to the Synology training. We have an awesome topic today dedicated to Synology Surveillance Station and several different recent updates that occurred between the transition between Surveillance Station 8 and Surveillance Station 9. Quick introduction, my name's Cody. I'm a product manager here at Synology, and I'm going to be your guide for this one this time around. As mentioned, this is going to be a dedicated session to Synology's Surveillance Station, which is a professional video management system, or VMS, that is bundled with DSM. If your Synology NAS is compatible with Surveillance Station, you can turn it into an NVR. So pretty much all Plus Series NAS and up in the Synology NAS lineup can be utilized as a network video recorder. So on the agenda today, we have quite a bit to cover. We're going to start off by getting started with Surveillance Station and how to turn your Synology NAS into an NVR with this package by adding IP cameras, by setting up notifications, users, and also interacting with your recordings. We're then going to take a look at multi-site scalability and failover to show you how you can add system-level redundancy and control to your surveillance deployment. And then we're going to move into advanced features, which is how you can add customizability to your Surveillance Station instance. Next, we're going to take a look at AI detection and also hardware that you need to have on your system to be able to use some of our most advanced AI features. And to round things out, we're going to talk about how you can connect to your Surveillance Station instance utilizing the Surveillance Station clients on your PCs and mobile devices, for example. Moving on to Section 1, getting started with Surveillance Station for the first time and setting up your Synology NAS as a network video recorder, or NVR. This section is going to be all about the core of Surveillance Station. Surveillance in general is all about protecting your physical assets, either at home or in a commercial setting. So this section is going to focus on getting your camera set up for the first time, monitoring live views, getting alerts should things happen, and also interacting with your recordings. We're going to start off with IP camera, which is going to be where you set up and manage cameras in Surveillance Station. We're then going to look at Monitor Center, and this is a centralized interface that allows you to see all of your live feeds. You can scrub back and forth across the timeline and things of that nature. We're then going to look at notifications and actually getting alerts on your mobile device or through email, for example, of things that happen in your environment, such as when motion is detected. We're then going to move into recordings. This is going to be actually interacting with the module that stores and bookmarks all the different events that your cameras actually pick up. And then we're going to look at how you can actually enable users in Surveillance Station. You can create local users that are just dedicated to Surveillance Station usage. But remember that this Surveillance Station package exists on a Synology NAS, and this Synology NAS is already capable of joining things like already existing domains, for example. And those domain credentials can also be utilized to access Surveillance Station should you need to, or again, you can create local users, and we're going to go over all of that in this section. Starting off in the IP camera module, this is going to be where you can bring cameras into Surveillance Station for the first time, and it's where you can control all aspects of their operation, from recording settings to event detection settings and the like. You can also set up stream profiles for your cameras here. You can have them recording at their highest capability, let's say 5 megapixel or 4K, but have a separate stream profile for viewing live view from your mobile devices and have that be lower quality, thus helping you save bandwidth. You can also set up dual recording options inside of this IP camera module. This allows you to have a second set of your recordings saved to an SMB or CIFS mounted location, or you could use Synology's cloud-based solution, Synology C2 Surveillance, which is optional. So other things you can do in the IP camera module is set up event detection for your cameras. This could either be a software-based solution in Surveillance Station, or you could receive these event detection, motion detection results from the cameras themselves if they're compatible with Surveillance Station and this feature. You can also share stream pathways from your cameras inside of this IP camera module over RTSP. You can have this set for a specific period of time or have them be perpetual. And once you have all of these different settings changed for your IP camera that you added into this IP camera module, you can then use that as a template and batch edit the rest of your cameras in your system. Now keep in mind, we are adding cameras to Synology's Surveillance Station. Most of the Synology NAS come with 2 camera licenses included with the Synology NAS if it's compatible with Surveillance Station. Now, if you need more than a couple cameras, let's say a handful for your home, or maybe 100 cameras for your business, you will be buying additional camera licenses. But keep in mind, this is a one-time cost. They're perpetual licenses. These are not subscription fees. So here we are on our main Surveillance Synology NAS, and we're going to begin actually integrating a third-party camera to the system. Keep in mind, as we do so, if you're using Synology cameras, the process will be a little bit smoother and slightly different, since you'll be using the Synology camera tool, and that will be doing most of these operations automatically for you. So if you want more information on that process, go ahead and check out our Synology product online training video on the BC500 and TC500 cameras. Today, though, we're going to go through the third-party integration task, and we're going to go into IP camera and click Add. Surveillance Station will begin scanning your network automatically, but we'll add this camera manually since we have this information on hand. Once we're done filling out the brand and model name, we're going to move on and actually type in our admin credentials so we can authenticate with this other camera. So once our admin credentials are actually input here and we click Authenticate, it'll actually do the authentication with that camera, and whenever we see a green check mark, we can move forward in the wizard. Now, in this menu, you can do a quick setup or a complete setup, for example. We're going to do a quick setup and then go back into the edit menu so you can see what that looks like in the IP camera module. So once this is all complete and activated in the system, which can take a few minutes, you can then go into edit this camera's settings. And we're going to start off on the device tab at the very top left. So in this tab, you can change some of the different information for this camera, what you named it, etc. Under the video tab, you can change its different stream profiles, like for example, its video format, H.264, 265 if it's compatible, etc. You can see under stream profile, we have a couple different high bandwidth streams already listed, and you can see we have stream 1 at the bottom, which we can change. This camera is only capable of 1080, so it's at its max level already. But if we wanted to add additional stream profiles, you would go to the low bandwidth one, for example, and select stream 2. That would actually open up the stream 2 edit menu at the very bottom, and we could select a lower quality stream for that. Now, whenever we have that lower quality stream actually set, we'll be able to use that stream for mobile connections, and we'll show you where to set that in the future. Now, on the next tab, you can actually see where you can edit your masking zones. And so if you have any areas that you wanted to keep private from your surveillance footage, you can do so utilizing the security tab. And under advanced, most users don't have to change very many of these settings unless you're doing some RTSP screening. But now that that's all complete, that is essentially how you set up the camera at its core and the different settings inside of that device tab. So on this main recording tab, this is going to be where you control all the recordings for this camera. You can select pre and post recording time after an event, and you can also specify how long you want to retain your recordings or put a cap on top of them. If you just want to retain your recordings for 30 days, this is the correct setting to utilize. You can also choose where you want these recordings to live on the specific device, utilizing this recording storage destination. Now under scheduling, you can color code and block out periods of time where you want the camera to record under specific requirements. So you could have this camera record only under continuous recording at all times, or block out periods of times when you would want to record just on motion, for example. Now on this next page, you can actually set some different stream profiles per the different recording types. So if we go to the stream tab, you can see you have one for continuous, motion, and those customizable options. So for continuous, we could have a low quality stream, for example, or for the motion detection, you could have a high quality stream. So whenever it detects an event such as motion, it automatically switches over to that higher quality stream. Now for advanced recording, this is going to be selecting the stream profile that you want Surveillance Station to switch to whenever you have things triggered in action rules, for example. You can also do advanced continuous recording so that it changes its stream profile whenever it does detect an event, and that's at the very bottom. On this next page, you also have dual recording. Now, dual recording allows you to save an extra copy of your recordings to another destination. You can do another Synology NAS, for example, or any other SMB CIFS mounted folder. Or you could use Synology C2 Cloud Storage if you have a subscription, which is highlighted right under that bubble, especially if it's grayed out. Now, these dual recording options will be their own separate recording policies. So you can select your retention, the recording stream profiles, etc. And lastly, under the Advanced tab, again, there's not too many settings you would need to change here for most users. Now, under this Live View option here, this is going to be where you can select your stream settings for either Live View via a client or on a mobile device. So on a Live View for clients, you'll probably want to have the highest quality available. But for mobile devices, to save bandwidth, you might want to use a low bandwidth option. So whenever you're selecting your cameras and viewing them on a mobile device, you would save that cellular data. You can also do dynamic stream settings so that whenever you detect an event, you can have Surveillance Station automatically switch streams to a higher quality whenever that event is indeed detected. Now again, under the advanced option, there's not too many other settings you would have to change if you're a normal user, but it's good to know where these settings are nonetheless. Now under the optimization section here, it's kind of some handy different tools. You can do some on-screen displays, you can control day-night mode, etc. from this main menu here. Now under advanced, there's a great feature here for mirroring, flipping, and rotating the actual camera. Just in case you don't want to get the ladder back out again to actually physically move that, you can do so software-based here using those mirror, flip, and rotate options. Now on this next tab, you have event detection. This is going to be where you can actually set up your event detection sources for your camera. You can have it be run on the camera itself or by surveillance station, and you can adjust its sensitivity and threshold utilizing these menu buttons here, and you can also change your detection area on the far right-hand side. You can also do audio detection and tampering control, as well as advanced event detection if your cameras are supported on that. We also have a separate KAB article on our knowledge base that would go through some of the different advanced detection results that your camera might be capable of, depending on what brand it is from those third-party manufacturers. And lastly, we have our I/O port option at the very bottom. This would only be utilized if you are integrating a third-party input-output module in a surveillance station, but you can set up some of the different control features here on this last section right there. Now, once we hit apply and OK, all of our main settings have now been set for our camera, this parking lot 1 camera. Now, if we wanted to copy the settings from this camera to the rest of our environment, you can go to Edit and actually copy these settings and have different settings be applied to multiple different cameras at once, and this is the batch editing feature. Now, once that's all complete and we've edited all of our cameras across this entire range, if you go to a camera, go and right-click on it and click Share, you can actually share this stream pathway over RTSP, for example, and you can select it to be up to an hour, or you could have it be perpetual on top of that. And that, in a nutshell, is all the different features that you can utilize inside of the IP camera module in the surveillance station. Next up, we have Monitor Center, and this is going to be where the bulk of your interaction with your security system occurs day to day. And you can view up to 100 camera streams inside of Monitor Center if your client PC is powerful enough to do so. You can do custom layouts that are tied to specific users or groups, including domain users and groups if your NAS is tied to a domain. And you can also dedicate a tile on your layout to eMaps. You can use Google Maps or upload your own footage to actually use as a layout for your cameras. You can then lay the cameras on top of those Google Map tiles or layouts that you uploaded yourself, and then see alerts real time as they come in across those cameras. If you have a security team, for example, they can then respond to those incidents using that layout efficiently and easily. On top of that, you also have control over I/O modules that you might have paired back to Surveillance Station, and you can actually trigger them from directly in Monitor Center if you are utilizing those third-party components. Some other things you can do in Monitor Center is there is on-screen display or OSD buttons directly on each tile. So if one of those tiles is displaying footage from a PTZ or pan tilt zoom camera, you can actually control that using those on-screen display options directly inside of Monitor Center. You also have instant playback capabilities. You can use the timeline at the bottom of the screen to scrub back and forth to jump to different periods of time inside of your recording pool. And Monitor Center also integrates with CMS or Central Management System. We're going to talk a little bit more on this later, but essentially you can stitch multiple Synology NAS recording servers together and use a large CMS host as the main aggregator for all of these different feeds. You can then see all of those different feeds directly inside of Monitor Center, even if they're across multiple different recording servers. And we'll go into more detail on that in just a moment. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and check out Monitor Center. Now, before we get started on Monitor Center, we're going to start off in Camera Group. This is going to be a way to actually group cameras together so that they can be rotated on individual tile, or you can create a layout that just contains this entire group. So we can add a couple different cameras to this south side parking lot group here. And once we click apply, that'll be done, and these cameras are grouped together in the south side parking lot group. Now keep in mind as we group these cameras together, if you do have your system already paired in a Surveillance Station CMS environment, which we'll get to later, you can also add those cameras from other recording servers into this environment. Now let's get started on the Monitor Center portion. Now this is going to be where you can actually begin editing your various layouts. So on this plus symbol at the very top, you're going to be able to do a general layout, a layout folder, or a camera group layout, sequential layout, or an alert layout. A camera group layout will set a layout that displays all the cameras in a group. So that group we just created, we can now create a layout that reflects all those cameras that we added for that south side parking lot group. Now, anytime we make a change to that camera group, this layout will also be changed on top of that. So there's a couple other layout options that were available before we created this camera group layout. So we're going to go ahead and click this plus symbol at the very top, and you can see that we also have the sequential layouts. Now, a sequential layout is essentially a layout that plays into another layout based on an interval that you set here. So we can choose one of the layouts we created previously and another one and have it rotate between the two every 5 seconds in this example. So we're going to choose our spot group layout and our Synology cameras only layout here. With this interval, once we create and name this layout, we're going to be able to see that the layouts will transition between each other every 5 seconds. Now, as you can see, we're on our sequential layout, and you can see at the bottom what happens whenever you actually trigger between the two. And you can see kind of a status symbol at the very bottom, and you can see it transition between the spot group layout and the Synology cameras only layout. The last of these layouts is the alert layout. Now, this is a layout that will automatically switch between one layout and another or more based on when events are triggered. If multiple events occur at once, the layouts will be switched according to a buffer time rather than at a set interval. So what we can do here is set the buffer time to 5 seconds and choose various layouts to have it switch between whenever those alerts do come in. Now that we've checked all the different layout options that are available inside of this environment, let's just interact with Monitor Center like you normally would. So you can see we have several different cameras across this local host. We're going to select a few of them. And all you need to do to actually begin creating a layout is actually just select the cameras that you want and click and drag into this blank window here, and it will automatically adjust the camera feeds to fit inside this layout as you see here. Now we have this custom layout already created inside of Monitor Center. What we're going to be able to do is also interact with on-screen display buttons you see here. You can see one for drag and zoom, manual recording, snapshots, PTZ control, audio pattern, as well as the ability to hold the talk and volumes. So what we can do here is, since this is a PTZ camera, I can hover over this direction. You can see this arrow cursor kind of populate on the tile. And whenever I click this cursor directly on screen, it will move that PTZ camera directly through the Monitor Center integration. So now that we've checked all the different options for actually using on-screen display buttons and the different layout features you can do, let's use the timeline at the very bottom. So you can use this timeline to instantly jump even an individual tile to a specific point in time. You can see I'm actually taking this parking lot 1 camera and rolling it back to quite early in the morning in this case. You can use this live view button to bring it back to its current state if you ever need to. Now, you have some previous event buttons listed at the bottom right. You can jump to a previous event at a previous point in time. If the camera doesn't have an event, it'll let you know, but you can select another camera and jump to its previous events if you need to. And you can see it automatically brings up that camera footage to whenever it's caught motion of that car driving through that parking lot. Now, if you need to download some footage, you can use this download button on the bottom left, and you'd be able to select a period of time for your recordings, both a start date and a start time, and you can also protect this recording with a password. Keep in mind that if you do protect with a password, you can't also use a watermark, but a password can be utilized, especially if you have some sensitive footage that you want to be providing to some other third parties. Now, once you set all of your requirements for this recording download, it'll begin downloading this through your surveillance station client, which we're in right now, and you'll be able to actually interact with your data on your local PC after this has finished downloading, and you'll see the alerts at the top left when it is finished doing so. All right, last for Monitor Center, we're going to take a look at Emaps. And to set up Emaps, you can use this Emaps option at the top, and you can either upload an image or use a map service specifically for this solution. So you can use OpenStreetMap or Google API. We're going to use OpenStreetMap today since the API is already defaulted in our environment. This would require you to use Google Maps APIs if you use the Google Maps option, or you could use a custom tile server if you need to. But for us, we're going to use the OpenStreetMaps option here, and we're going to keep it on dark mode to save our eyes. So once you actually have that all set, you'll see this map populated. We already had a Bellevue, Washington location already selected, which is right around our office here. And you can see there's already some cameras populated in this environment. If we zoom in, you can see whenever you have two cameras that are really close to each other, it kind of groups them together. There's some options on the right-hand side of this actual screen here. You can change some different things for your settings, but if you click edit, you'll be able to change what cameras are actually placed on this map itself. So I can click and drag a camera and actually place it on to this EMAP and actually rotate its field of view and shrink that field of view so you know how far the camera is actually seeing. Like I know for a fact that this camera for the parking lot isn't seeing all the way across the movie theater building. So once we have all those different field of views set, all that stuff, we can use this EMAP easily inside of Monitor Center. We're going to save and actually hop back over into the Monitor Center section here. And now just like the cameras, you can see there's a actual device and tool list for maps here at the top. We can select maps and click and drag it into an empty tile here, and then select what map we want placed here. So now we can see our EMAP of our entire surveillance station layout, and we can actually scroll and click and drag around there. Another handy feature that security teams will like to know about is you can actually use the select tool. If you utilize the select tool, you can click and drag an area on your EMAP and then have it automatically create a layout based on the cameras that are inside of that select tool range. So once I select these cameras, it'll automatically create a layout using all the cameras within that range. And that's the handy feature of EMAPs. Your security teams can use EMAPs so that they can accurately and easily respond to incidents on your property. So we've gone through getting the IP cameras connected and also being able to view the live views and scrub back and forth on the timeline. But you can't always be looking at your live view footage for your surveillance system to react to events as they occur. That's where notifications come in. This can be where you can actually set up automated alerts for your surveillance station system. They can be done over email or webhooks. You can get one sent to pretty much any email address. And for webhooks, that means that you can actually integrate with, let's say, a chat platform like Synology Chat, Teams, etc. On top of that, you can also set up mobile and push services. For mobile, you'll use the DS Cam app that we'll talk about a little bit later in today's session. This will be what actually receives those notifications and alerts you on your mobile device. Now, this DS Cam app, as we'll discuss later, is also what you'll utilize to see your live view and other recordings whenever you're actually on the go. Lastly, you can also set custom rules for your notifications. You can select which notifications are right for you and also schedule them to take effect at specific periods during the day. So let's go ahead and check all this out. So we've already touched on how to use Monitor Center and how to integrate cameras into your system. However, you can't always be looking at the live view of your surveillance environment, and that's where alerts and notifications come into play. So in this section, we're going to look at how to actually enable these notifications. We're going to open up this module and begin setting up our email address for our alerts. But keep in mind there's also SMS, push service, and webhook options available for you. So the webhook options are going to be great if you want to integrate this with a chat platform, such as Synology Chat or another popular chat platform out there. So under email, we're going to enable our email notifications and choose our recipients. And we're going to choose our email server. You could use a public email server like Gmail, Yahoo, etc., or you can use your own custom SMTP server if you need. We're going to use Gmail today to make it nice and easy. And once that's all enabled, we'll begin receiving notifications based on what we set in the rules section. Now, under the push service tab here, this is going to be where all your paired DS Cam instances live, and you can unpair them manually from here. If you want to pair your mobile devices to this surveillance station instance, you would use DS Cam and actually do all the logging in there, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. So under this rules tab, this is going to be where you can actually enable or disable various notifications for a whole range of features inside a surveillance station. For example, we want to enable our notifications for email and mobile for things like camera lost, motion detection, advanced event detection if your camera supported it and if you configured it, etc. Now, if we scroll down to some other rules that aren't just camera related, you'll notice there's different rules for systems, there's different rules for things like access control, deep video analytics, as well as facial recognition. So you can have various different notifications set for these different features inside a surveillance station, all the way into facial recognition and if a VIP or blocked user is actually detected. Now, once you have all these different things set inside of your notifications, you can also set schedules for each one of these rules and block out a period of time where you don't receive these notifications. Maybe you don't want motion detection notifications in the middle of the day. You could disable those if you needed to. And you can also batch edit your rules so they all can be given the same level of scheduling that you might have set for a single particular one, like the motion detection example I just gave. So once you have these notifications all set up for surveillance station, you'll be alerted of things that happen in your environment, even if you're not directly looking at Monitor Center and the live view. So we've gone through integrating our cameras, seeing the live view and timeline, and also getting our notifications set up. The recordings module is going to be where you can actually see all your recordings, and it acts as your central repository. Your recordings are actually bookmarked with specific events, so you can easily jump to those as they occur. Let's say you're using a Synology camera, and the AI capabilities we'll discuss a little bit later today. You'll actually be able to jump to those specific bookmarks and events in this recording module to easily see those events and then pull that data out to be submitted elsewhere if you need to. On top of that, the Recordings app allows you to archive data outside of Surveillance Station so you can retain it for longer periods of time than the storage in your NAS may be capable of. And also you can mount archives that you may have sent off previously utilizing this Recordings app. So let's check out the Recordings module in Surveillance Station. So now we already have our monitor center, our live view already created. We've done integration for the cameras and we have our notifications going. So let's take a look at how you can retrieve those recordings after the fact. And we're going to be looking at the recording module here today. So you can see that we have the recording module open and we have a whole list of recordings here. This is going to be where all those detection results and those recordings actually live for various different things. There's a handy search feature at the top right. You can select how you want to search either on the local host or other paired recording servers or archiving tasks back to the CMS host. And we'll talk more about CMS in a little bit. We'll stick with local host as our source, and you can choose what recording mode you actually want to search for, main recording or one of your dual recording options. You also can choose different search thresholds for your event type. Let's say we want to just find events like motion detection on our local host. We would use this setting here. You can do some other filters for date and time, for example. And once those have all been set, you can then choose what cameras you actually want to search all of these different sources against. So if we don't want to search just all of these cameras, we can deselect them and just select parking lot 2, for example, then have just the results for that pull up right here. And we can view the previews of this recording utilizing the button right there and the built-in player inside of Surveillance Station. Now, if you right-click one of these recordings and hit download, you can begin downloading these recordings just similar to how you actually download them inside of Monitor Center. You also have the ability to share these different recordings out directly from this environment. Now, there's also another area where you can actually download some of these different recordings, and that's at the download button at the top. But it's a very similar menu that you saw whenever you did it in Monitor Center, whenever you were looking at your layout. It's a very similar menu where you select your date and your time, and once you've done all of that, it'll then download this recording through your Surveillance Station client. Now, there's some other detection results and recordings you can see under motion, recording list, and there's also some bookmarks too. We'll talk a little bit more about those as we look at some later advanced detection options later on in today's session. However, if we take a look at the archive settings, this is going to be where you can actually see the different default storage locations inside of Surveillance Station. It's one of the places you can do so. And you can also add additional storage locations if you need to. Now, you have other options for event history. You can configure the storage settings for people, vehicle, intrusion, and motion detection events. And under recording history, this is going to be where you can change those settings for recording history. Now, the recording history options, a lot of people don't really need to change some of the settings here. However, you can choose to rotate recordings when free storage space is less than a certain threshold, or limit your bookmarks number if you need to inside of the recording history option. But again, a lot of people do not need to change those settings. Now, under advanced, this is going to be where you can actually export or mount various recording archives. So if we go to export here, you can see that we have the ability to begin an export task. So once we do that, we're going to click add, and we're going to begin choosing how we actually want to archive this data off. We're going to, of course, name it first, and we can choose our source server and the destination. Once we choose our destination, we choose what shared folder we want this to live on. So we're going to scroll and find the necessary folder that we actually want to export this to. Now, once we do so, we can select what cameras we want to export to this specific destination, and we can choose the time range that we want exported. Once we do that, we can check on the status of this export here, utilizing the status column on the very far right. Keep in mind, after you export it, there's also an import tab at the very top that allows you to do a very similar task for importing this archive so you can mount it and then actually view that footage once again inside of timelines, live view, the recording apps, all of that. Lastly, we have the user module inside of Surveillance Station. This is going to be where you actually want to create the multiple different users that are going to be utilizing the system day to day. Now, you can create permissions for all your users or groups, and this can be local users or domain users and groups on top of that. These permissions apply to what servers they can access, what IP cameras they can access, what features they can access in those devices, and also things like layouts, emaps, and other settings inside of this application. As mentioned, you can do local users in groups, but also domain users in groups, because underneath Surveillance Station is a Synology NAS, which does have the capability to be joined to already existing domains. So you can do that and have that be trickled down into Surveillance Station on top of that. So let's check out the user modules and how you can set up granular user permissions for your environment. So to actually begin setting up the correct permissions for our users, we're going to use the user module here on the main menu, and we're going to move over into this list. Now, once this list populates, you're going to notice we have several different users already enabled in our environment. And you can also see that there are going to be several other domain users also listed. You can see slab /, that is our domain, SLAB, inside of our demo environment. So if you had your NAS joined to a domain, you would see similar groups in yours. Now, you can see there's some other options here under Privilege Profile and Advanced, but the main thing we're going to go through is actually adding some local users here today. So we're going to go ahead and click Add under the List option and select a user named Spot, for example. What I really like about this feature is you're able to restrict when this user can log on. You can completely deactivate this account based on the set schedule you create here in this table. Now, you can choose existing privilege profiles, be an all-object spectator or an all-object manager. Now, if we take a look at one of these, since it does say all object, whenever we actually enable all object spectator for this Spot user, you're going to notice that all of the different modules here are already automatically selected, and we cannot disable them whenever they're all object spectators or managers. But if we wanted to change that, we could give them a new privilege profile that is just at the spectator level, and then we can granularly select what servers they actually have access to. We can disable the all servers option and choose what other servers they have access to in our CMS environment. Again, something else we'll get to a little bit later. Now, on the next page, we can choose what cameras they can actually interact with. So we can select some cameras that they can use for live view, for example. And we can also select if they can do things like playback, lens control, audio, and digital output on top of that. So we'll select some other ones for this user. Next, you can choose what I/O modules they have control over. We don't have any integrated right now, so we're not going to use those. And there's a couple other ones that are optional here that we're not going to utilize since we don't have them integrated. But for maps, we definitely have some created, as you just saw in our Monitor Center demo. We want to give this user the ability to view at least some of these layouts, so we gave them the view option. Now, for these different layouts and maps and all that stuff, we're going to make sure we just select the view column so they can't actually edit and control them. We want them to see only what we have selected, so that's why we're being a little bit more restrictive here. Now you can choose what other privileges and things that they have access to, like facial recognition options, etc. If you want to really lock down some of these advanced features for this user, you can leave them unauthorized on all of this so that they wouldn't have access to these features. Now, once we hit done, this will create this user, and it'll be then usable for logging in to your surveillance environment. So what we're going to do next is actually log in to our surveillance environment, utilizing the Spot user to see what they can see now. So we're going to log in with the Surveillance Station client using the Spot user and the credentials we set. And now you can see it's actually a stripped down version of the Surveillance Station environment. And since this user is interacting with this information for the first time, you'll see all these different tooltips that it's getting. And you can see as we go into the main menu, there's much less that is selectable as compared to our admin view that we've seen thus far. And as we go into Monitor Center, you can see only the layouts we selected are viewable for this specific user, and only the specific cameras we selected whenever we created that privilege profile. So that's how handy users is. It allows you to create specific users that are just local for your Surveillance Station environment, or you can join the NAS to a domain, an already existing Active Directory domain, and have those domain users utilize their domain credentials to log into their surveillance environment. So we're not going to go into depth on how to utilize a domain on a Synology NAS. That's an entire different webinar all on its own. But in case you are wondering where you can integrate your Synology NAS with your already existing domain, you can do so on your main Synology NAS in Control Panel, Domain and LDAP at the very top, and you can follow this Join Domain wizard. You can join an LDAP or an Active Directory domain or another Synology directory server domain if you don't already have one stood up. But you can do so here by following our KB articles and this wizard to get your Synology NAS actually integrated with your domain. And of course, once you do so, those domain users will then be able to log into Surveillance Station using their domain credentials if they have permissions to do so. So here's where we're at in this section so far. We have our Synology NAS, we have Surveillance Station running on top of that. That is your video management system. It's what's turning your Synology NAS into an NVR, a network video recorder. All of your cameras in the field are recording back to the surveillance station NAS, and you're able to view live views and previous recordings of those cameras. Your users, either local users and groups or users that are brought in through your domain integration, can then access this NAS, the layouts, the emaps, the recordings, etc., whenever they need to. Moving on to section 2 on multi-site scalability and failover. Since we just went over the core of Synology's surveillance station, this is about scaling the system past what a single NAS is capable of. So we're going to be looking at central management system, which allows you to designate a host and add multiple Synology NAS to create a larger surveillance ecosystem. You can also use other functionality inside of central management system to create a failover environment to add additional redundancy to your surveillance system. Surveillance Station Central Management System, or CMS, is a powerful management tool for scaling your Synology Surveillance Station instance past what a single NAS is capable of. It allows you to have 1,000 servers or sites and up to 10,000 cameras paired to one CMS host or a pair of CMS hosts in an HA cluster. You're also able to migrate cameras between your different recording servers. Let's say you needed to do maintenance on one of the Synology NAS recording servers. You could migrate the camera's recordings and recording feeds as well over to another system that you aren't doing maintenance on, so you keep retaining that coverage for your security cameras even during maintenance scenarios. You also have remote control of these various systems. You can change their notification settings, add IP cameras even from this remote location, and there's also tight integration with other modules inside of Surveillance Station. If you log into your Surveillance Station CMS host, for example, and open up Monitor Center, you can see the live view feeds and timelines of all the different recording servers paired back to your CMS host, even if you have 1,000 recording servers or 1,000 sites paired back. So let's check out Synology's Surveillance Station Central Management System in action. So now let's begin interacting with Central Management System, or CMS. We're going to start off on a secondary recording server level NAS and get it ready for pairing back to our CMS host. So we are not on the same NAS that we've been interacting with this entire time thus far. So if we take a look at our main screen here, we're on a secondary NAS, and we're going to go to its CMS module. Instead of leaving this NAS in a host level like you see here, we're going to move down to the advanced option at the very bottom to be able to change its role inside of the CMS environment. By default, it's set to host, but we want to turn this into a recording server. Now, this checkbox allows you to prevent users on this recording server from making changes to it. If you want to lock down those recording servers just to expand your surveillance station environment's capacity and recording capabilities, you could leave that enabled. But if you want to have your recording servers retain some level of autonomy, then you can leave that disabled, and this is changeable at a later time. Now, once we've set our recording server level, you'll see that warning on screen, and we'll move back over to our main sales demo 1. This is going to be our main CMS host. You can see there's already some recording servers paired back to it, but what we're going to do is click Add. And when we click Add, we're going to begin bringing in that NAS we just enabled as a recording server. So you're going to see this Synology NAS scan the environment for other NAS, and you can see that we have this DS718 that we're going to actually bring into our CMS environment. So we're going to select that and provide our authentication details. And once that's all finished and we have a green check mark again, we're good to proceed. Now you can review some of your settings here. You can see there's 2 points listed here. Those can be changed after the fact, so don't worry about that. Once we hit done, that'll bring this Synology NAS in as a recording server inside of our CMS environment underneath this CMS host. Now, what we can do with the system is we can view its details with the system application at the very bottom. You can see what type of device it is, etc., what its health is overall. And you can also do things like enable your notifications on this secondary NAS. You can see these are the notification settings for that DS718 we just brought in as a recording server. So now that we've mastered the recording server integration, you can see there's some other tabs along the bottom. We're going to get to Failover server in a minute, but you can see there is a migration option right here. It's the second from the bottom. We're using this right now to just make sure that all of our different NAS that are recording servers have at least some camera that we can interact with through Monitor Center. So you can use this migration tool to migrate your cameras to other Synology NAS, especially handy if you're going to be doing some maintenance on a specific node, for example. Now, back on our Monitor Center, you can see that we have the device and tools list on the bottom left of Monitor Center. What you're going to notice is we have our local host, which is our main CMS host that has some cameras. But also keep in mind that as we break into the additional Synology NAS listed here, you're going to be able to actually select other cameras from other recording servers and still have them viewable on this main CMS host allowing you to have multiple recording servers out in the field, all viewable through one pane of glass through that CMS host. So what we just discussed is a scenario where we have a CMS host or a pair of CMS hosts paired together in Synology High Availability for added stability. These are going to be the main systems that our HQ location would interact with. And these CMS host devices are managing various recording servers or various sites out in the field. Each of those sites has their own Synology NAS acting as its recording server, and it's all aggregated under one single pane of glass, your CMS host, that your central management team can actually interact with. Taking things a bit further, Central Management System Failover, or CMS Failover, is another component of Surveillance Station CMS. It adds additional redundancy to your Surveillance Station instance. Essentially, you have other failover servers lying in wait that are assigned to specific recording servers. If those recording servers ever go down, then that failover server would jump in and start to take over those camera streams so you don't lose any footage, even if there is a recording server level failover inside of your Surveillance Station CMS instance. So let's go ahead and check out this failover in action and how it can actually gracefully fail back and how this whole situation is handled through your CMS host. So we're back on our main recording server that we added previously. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to switch it over to a failover server now and show you what that integration looks like. So we're on this secondary NAS. We're back in CMS under advanced, and we're changing its role to a failover server. Now once we do so, we'll get an on-screen notification that it is now indeed a failover server, and we're going to reintegrate this server into our CMS host as a failover server and protect one of our other Synology NAS. So now that we have it set as a failover server, we're back on our main CMS host, our Sales Demo 1 device. We're inside of CMS, we've gone to the failover server tab, and we've clicked add. What we're going to do now is begin filling out some of the details for this failover server that we just brought in. We're going to type in its IP address and its different credentials that we need to log into it. Now once we test this connection, we have a green check mark. That means that we are good to go, and we've brought it in as a failover server. Let's check out the failover settings portion. This is going to be where you enable your automatic failover and change how it behaves. We can have it failover due to a storage status volume crash, for example, if the package itself has some abnormality, and you can have it stop the failover automatically when the recording server comes back to normal. You can also change its failover range, either full functionality or just the live view, for example. Now, once you've all set these different thresholds for your failover settings, you can then go back to recording server and apply this failover server to that recording server. So once we go to this advanced tab here, we can select the DS718 standalone as its protective server. So as we break out the Seattle lab device here, you can see that is now protected by the DS718 standalone. So we're going to go side by side here and proceed with a manual failover. You can see as we go through this failover process, we begin to get a warning at the bottom saying that one of our recording servers has been failed over. And once this is all finished, you can see that on the right-hand side, this camera is still viewable. You can see the little preview tile there. And as we go through stop failover, it'll bring everything back to normal. And once we allow this whole process to finish, then we'll have tested our failover, and you can see what the whole failover process has looked like. So in short, if one of your recording servers goes down and it's protected by one of your failover server, you won't lose too much recording time at all, especially if you have edge recording. Even the little bit of time that it takes for the recording server to fail over to the failover server is even protected by those edge recording details. So now, after going through all this, we have our main central management system host, and we've added Synology High Availability in this case to give us added redundancy at that level. We then have our recording server layer. This is going to be all the different sites with their own dedicated NVR, the Synology NAS in this case. If we need additional capacity or additional sites brought online, we would just add recording servers at that layer. And then each one of those recording servers in best practice has at least one failover server paired back to it. So in total, each recording server has at least one failover server. So if one of those recording servers goes down, it has its paired failover server that'll step in and take over that camera footage. Now keep in mind, we do have a failover white paper for actually utilizing Synology's central management system with Surveillance Station. Now, whenever you're doing something like this, you want to make sure that the recording server and the failover server are actually in the same domain. That's the best practice in most scenarios. That way, if the recording server goes down, it can fail over to the failover server in the same domain that it resides in. So all of your recordings don't actually have to traverse across the greater internet. It'll help you save bandwidth and give you faster failover times as a whole and just make the system more stable. If you have more questions about how to make a robust and redundant central management system, go ahead and reach out to us at sac_sales@synology.com or go ahead and send us an inquiry. Moving on to section 3 on advanced features. In this section, we're going to start off with Smart Search, allowing you to quickly find recordings of special events utilizing the Surveillance Station client. Also in the Surveillance Station client, there's Live View Analytics, allowing you to track different targets during live video viewing and recording. And then we have Edge Recording. We're going to talk about how you can use recording storage built into the cameras with Surveillance Station, how if there's a connection issue, for example, between the camera and Surveillance Station, footage can still be collected by the camera and then piped back into Surveillance Station when the connection is restored. We'll then take a look at transactions and how you can integrate Synology Surveillance Station with your point of sale system utilizing TCP/IP connections, allowing you to display this transactional data on screen in your live view. We'll then move into customizable features inside of Surveillance Station. The Surveillance Station Web API allows full control of Surveillance Station through HTTP commands, which will be very handy if you're a developer trying to integrate Surveillance Station with any third-party applications. On top of that, you also have Actionables, which allows you to automate surveillance functions to help reduce workloads. So with Smart Search, you're going to want to utilize Surveillance Station Client. It allows you to designate a specific area and quickly jump to a specific recording that has results that you specify whenever you actually started the search. So for example, let's say we have a valuable device here and we notice in the morning it is gone. And we need to actually find when that object was taken. We can use the Smart Search function, designate a specific area, and then actually quickly jump to the recording of when that object was moved or taken. So taking a look at the Smart Search module, one of the great features about Smart Search is you're able to jump to periods of time even if you don't know when those periods of time actually specifically occurred. So you can't manually do it in timeline, but you know relatively that something was stolen or something was placed where it shouldn't be. So what we can do here is, let's say I don't want there to be a water bottle in this environment around all this technology. I'm going to choose my camera source, of course, which is going to be this lab monitor. And then under settings, I'm going to be able to choose what I actually want to actually detect. So in this case, I want to detect a foreign object like a water bottle with high sensitivity and a small object size because it's just a water bottle after all. So what we're going to do is run this detection algorithm for this specific area. When I hit play here, it'll actually jump to a period of time when that water bottle was placed. And you'll see that over this lapse that occurred, this 100 times playthrough that occurred, we can see that detection result of this foreign object actually being placed, which is this water bottle. And of course, you can see this thumbnail on the top right, actually view this footage if you need to. And of course, you could pull this out and download it if you needed to make some adjustments internally to make sure this doesn't happen again. Live View Analytics are another option that you can utilize inside of the Surveillance Station client and is actually compatible with all Synology NAS that can run Surveillance Station. It's a type of AI that allows you to get some advanced detection results like motion detection, but also missing object detection, foreign object detection, and other features like camera occlusion. Camera occlusion will detect if the camera lens is actually covered, like if someone spray paints over the top of it, for example. You can also detect if focus is lost on the camera. Let's say there's a smudge on the camera, it makes it look a little bit blurry. That can be detected with Live View Analytics as well. You can also detect idle situations or loitering situations using this feature. Next, you have Edge Recording, which is a great solution if you're expecting some sort of spotty connection between the camera feed and Surveillance Station. The SD card on the camera can actually collect footage and then bring it back over to Surveillance Station when the connection is restored. Keep in mind, however, this is a specific feature that is only supported if the camera does have a card slot built into it. And also keep in mind, since this is a type of flash storage, eventually the cards will need to be replaced. So what that means is that you will have to plan for maintenance in the future to replace these cards. But it is a handy feature if you're expecting some sort of spotty connection between the camera and the Synology NAS due to your deployment. Next, you will also have transactions. Transactions are a way that you can integrate your TCP/IP-based point of sale system with the Synology surveillance station environment. You're able to actually get transactional data from your point of sale system and then display that transactional data on top of your live view. You can also then search some of your transaction results utilizing this application in this module. Luckily, Synology actually has a transaction simulator, so we can actually show you this in action. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So with this transactions environment, we already have the transaction simulator running on a Windows device in our environment, and we're going to be connecting to that to simulate how you would connect to your point of sale system or POS system. So what we're going to do is under device, go to add. We're going to choose what Synology NAS we want to run this through, and we're going to choose the DVA since we have some extra licenses. Keep in mind, using transactions does take an additional license to be able to utilize inside a surveillance station. So we're going to go ahead and name this, choose our source, and then type in the IP and port information necessary to connect to our point of sale system. And you can see that we now have this all connected. Now what we're going to be doing is defining the different data that this system will now ingest. And you can see that we have the transaction start and transaction finish strings that are listed here, as well as a cancel string. So each point of sale system is going to be a little bit different, and you want to define these various start of transaction, end of transaction details based on what information you get in this menu. So we're going to type Synology transaction start as the start of transaction threshold, and likewise for the transaction end or finish. And finally, there's also one for cancel on top of that. So once that's all finished, you'll get the correct information that will be searchable, all that stuff inside of transactions. So once this is all finished typing out, we can then set some other details for our transaction data. On this next screen, we're going to be able to choose what camera we want this paired to, what position alignment you want, if you want to change the font color or background, etc. Once that's all done, we can then be done configuring this entire transactions device. And now that is all configured, we're going to let it finish setting up here. And we're going to run a couple different transactions through this simulator so that it gets captured in the transactions module for surveillance stations to show you what those results would look like on screen. So now that this is done configuring, if we go to historical records, you can see there's an absurdly large purchase here for somewhere around $18 million worth of food. And if we take a look at the man who bought $18 million of fried chicken, you can see that this is him making his getaway after the transaction, and you can see that we have the transaction information displayed on the top left. Now, this is a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek example, but what we're really trying to get at here is that if you had a camera facing your retail location, you would be able to see the transaction data overlaid on top of that retail location. Say it is in front of your clerk, and you would be able to see that transaction actually take place real time. So you may have noticed that Synology recently released some videos showcasing how you can connect a third-party system with Surveillance Station utilizing webhooks. Surveillance Station has things like Web API and these webhooks, so you can connect with those third-party solutions. And if you're a developer looking to do something similar with your application in Surveillance Station, go ahead and reach out to sac_sales@synology.com or send us an inquiry, and we can get you connected with the correct resources. Now, for other solutions that are already baked into Surveillance Station, you can take a look at action rules. If you're familiar with if this, then that, with other smart home solutions like HomeKit or Apple Shortcuts, for example, you can actually use action rules to create event-based actions. And these can be multiple conditional events as well as multiple actions taken as a result. So if you're looking to build a smart home or build customizable solutions for your business environment, action rules are the first place to look. So let's go ahead and check out the power of action rules and how they integrate with almost every single module we have seen thus far inside a Surveillance Station, including the AI features we're about to discuss. So we're going to go about setting up our first action rule. We're going to open up this module in the main menu. And before we actually create our first task, you can see there's other options for history as well as the advanced options if you want to keep specific logs. But back under list, we're going to go ahead and click add and start following through with this module. And we're going to go ahead and name this specific action rule, just spot once again. You can change rule type, have it be triggered so that the action is actually triggered by an event, or you can have it scheduled based on time, or you can make it interruptible as well. So interruptible means it is stoppable by some other action. So under event, this is going to be what causes your action to occur, and you can have it be an interval to specify how often to trigger the action, especially if multiple are coming through. Now you can see by default the event selected as surveillance station, but there's all kinds of modules listed in the dropdown. You can have it come from the camera, webhooks, access controllers, doors, transaction devices, surveillance station itself, facial recognition, and even deep video analytics can all be brought into action rules. This is one of the most powerful features inside of surveillance station just simply because of how customizable it is. So what we can do now is actually choose, let's say, a camera. And let's say one of these cameras, let's say one of the Synology BC500 cameras we have in our library here, detects some motion. And we want something to occur after that. On the next screen, we will define what action it takes. So let's say you also had a speaker paired back to your surveillance station environment. You can select speaker and have the device in question selected, and then have that audio play a specific pattern over that speaker. So what this audio pattern would do is, upon motion detection of the camera you selected, it would then play an audio pattern, and that could be a dog barking, for example. So you could also have the action or event be something more advanced, like a third-party webhook or if this then that integration. So with just those two examples, you can already start to imagine how this can be used to create a smart home environment using third-party integrations, or you can create a customizable solution with surveillance station using other third-party applications like we showed you in that video that we released on YouTube not too long ago. If you have more questions on action rules or surveillance station web API functionality, go ahead and reach out to sac_sales@synology.com or send us an inquiry and we can connect you with the proper resources. Start off this section by taking a look at deep video analytics. And these are analytics tasks that are available exclusively for the DVA lineup that we'll discuss, and it utilizes GPU computing technology for advanced detection results. We're then going to take a look at Synology cameras, which bring edge AI capabilities with the technology built into those systems. And then we're going to compare all three of the different advanced detection options that Synology offers. Live view analytics compared with deep video analytics compared with the Synology camera AI. Keep in mind, throughout this section, we're going to be discussing some advanced analytics features that are exclusive to specialized hardware in the Synology lineup. Deep video analytics tasks like license plate recognition and facial recognition are exclusive to the DVA NAS lineup that Synology offers, which are GPU driven. Now, the edge AI capabilities of Synology cameras are built into the cameras themselves, so to use those features, you will need Synology cameras on top of that. Now, keep in mind, both of these different features are separate. They can be used together, or they can be used by themselves. So you can use a DVA system with third-party cameras, or you can use Synology cameras with a normal Synology NAS. But the ultimate solution is using both Synology NAS, DVA NAS, and Synology cameras all together, and we'll discuss that in a moment. So let's take a look at the different deep video analytics tasks. We have people and vehicle detection, which allows you to detect people and vehicles with greater accuracy than normal detection options could. We also have license plate recognition, which is built into the vehicle detection module in your deep video analytics tasks. It allows you to log license plates from a range of countries, and you can actually keep those in a database and build action rules and other different features off of those. You also have intrusion detection, allows you to set a perimeter and you'll be alerted if that perimeter is ever broken. So let's set up people and vehicle detection with license plate recognition utilizing deep video analytics in a Synology environment. So we have our DVA Synology NAS already paired back to our CMS host through the CMS integration. It's acting as a recording server. So that's why we can see some of these face recognition and deep video analytics modules listed here. So we're going to go ahead and click on Deep Video Analytics, and you'll be able to see the different tasks that we do not have created just yet. So what we're going to do is go ahead and create a new task for people and vehicle detection, and we're going to choose what we want to name it and what video source we want to utilize. So we're going to just call this Main Street in our case, because we're going to be detecting license plates on a main street in this video footage. So what we're going to do here is select some different features that we want out of the detection target. So you could have people detection enabled and detect with below rules with crowd detection, loiter detection, and ignore unmoving people. You could also do vehicle detection to detect all vehicles with certain rules, ignore unmoving vehicles, and also enable license plate recognition. Now I know this footage is from Taiwan, so I'm going to select that country, but there's a range of other countries you can select from that drop-down. You can also choose to bookmark detected objects automatically in the Recordings app, which is helpful if you want to go back and search for those in that recording module we discussed previously. Now in this menu, we're going to choose how we actually want this task to run. So we're going to be able to select the detection area. Keep in mind, it's not just at 4 corners that you can adjust. You can adjust midpoint on any of these lines to make oblong shapes, just like you see here. So once we have all of these different points and we have our detection area set, we can also adjust this area with a parameter adjuster, which will allow you to change your parameters based on your actual detection results. Now, once we have this all enabled and we see our preview, you can see all kinds of detection results already coming in with 4 or 5 different cars driving by on this main street already. So what we can do now is actually take a deeper look at the detection results and show you how you can search some of this. So what we're going to do now is move into the detection results tab here. And you can see there's a detection result here with multiple different license plates actually already listed. So we can actually search for specific license plates using this search bar at the top, or something that we can do is go into the recording app and see how those are displayed there. So this EGW 2510 license plate, let's remember that and search for it in the recordings app too. You can see in the recordings app on the top left, there's this license plate option here, and you're going to be able to select what device you want to search on. You can see all the different license plate detection results listed for this DVA unit. Now, if we want to find one specific one, we can search by license plate number, type that license plate number in, and immediately find that specific license plate and vehicle that we have footage for. Now, once we have found that specific license plate and vehicle, we can then click on this button and actually see the preview results of that detection. And then we can, of course, download that result as necessary and provide it to necessary authorities if something happened, or we keep it for our records if it's needed. So what we're going to do now is actually discuss how you can do intrusion detection inside of your Deep Video Analytics device through your CMS host. So keep in mind, we are on our main CMS host, which is not a DVA unit. Our DVA unit is paired as a recording server and controllable by this main host. That's why you see some of these menu options here. So if we go to Deep Video Analytics, you can see the one we already created. We can go to Add and choose Intrusion Detection this time. You can name it and then choose your detection source. And now once that's done, you can begin changing some of the settings that are available for the system. You can choose people or vehicle detection with this intrusion option and also bookmark detected objects automatically. Now on this next screen, you can choose your parameters for the specific task. We want to guard this fence here from situations like this gentleman hopping the fence, as you see here. Now, keep in mind you can do it 2-way or 1-way if you want to. So on 1-way, you will get these purple arrows that populate and you can switch which direction they're facing. Again, there's also a parameter adjuster that can be used to adjust your detection settings based on actual footage you already have. Since this is our first time, we're not going to use that. Now, once we have that all set up, you can see that in our preview here, we can already get detection results of that intrusion occurring across that line that we set along the fence. Next, in the Deep Video Analytics tasks, you have people and vehicle counting. And as it sounds, it'll count people and vehicles depending on the camera setup in certain scenarios. You also have the ability to do crowd detection. You're able to detect if there is any kind of congestion, etc., in a specific area and be alerted when it exceeds a certain threshold. You also have facial recognition. Now, this will allow you to keep a facial recognition database of VIP users, normal users, and any blocked users from your environment. Now, what that means is that you can actually create action rules and other settings inside a surveillance station to notify you if a VIP enters your lobby or if someone who was previously banned from the premises enters your lobby likewise. So setting up facial recog inside of our DVA environment, which is paired back to our CMS host. We're going to go to our main menu and go to the facial recognition option here. And we're going to go ahead and click Create. Again, we're going to name our task, choose what server it's on, and choose our video source. And under here, we can actually change the different colors that are applied to each of the detection results. For example, something that we can do is have unknown ones be yellow, have registered ones be blue, etc. So once we do that, we're going to be able to set the settings we want for this detection environment. We're going to leave it default for us, and we're going to open up our preview and hop to a specific point in time and see the detection results roll in. You can see we already have some detection results occurring, and we have some unknown faces and one that is already known. So I already have some groups and some people applied inside of our detection database. So if we go to our detection results, you can see that we have this spot person already being recognized. And if we have an unknown person, we can easily click these 3 dots and register it as a user profile or correct any identification that might have been missed, for example. Now, if you don't want to interact with this menu through those buttons, there's also one under the More section where you can register user profiles there. Now, you can also go to the face database and change different user profiles. You can either edit specific users that were brought in, similar to how you saw in those detection results, or you can import your user profiles. You can also group those users so that whenever they're detected, they are framed based on those group colored settings that you created in the task. So for example, our registered users had a blue frame around their face. So let's filter our detection results by registered users. And once we do so, we should see just our registered user results. You can see our spot user here. If we click play, you're going to be able to see the results of this facial recognition task. So as we click play here, you're going to see this gentleman holding the box. You're going to see a blue frame around their face as they walk by because we've applied them to that spot group. And whenever we created the task, we've colored that frame for registered users as blue. So that's how you can display some of those facial recognition results. As mentioned, all of those deep video analytics tasks are exclusive to the Synology DVA lineup, and this is 2 different devices as it stands right now. Both of these devices are GPU driven for detection results. The DVA 3221 is built in with an NVIDIA graphics card, which is why it's a little bit chunkier than a normal 4-way NAS you might see from us. And the DVA 3221 can do up to 8 advanced detection results, which is 2 for the DVA 1622, which is using a built-in GPU on the processor itself. Now, alongside the DVA lineup, you have the ability to use Synology cameras and their Edge AI capabilities. You have the BC500 and TC500 cameras, a bullet style and a turret style camera, respectively. So, in regards to the BC and TC500 cameras, these cameras are compatible with any Synology NAS that can run Surveillance Station. So any Synology NAS that might not be part of the DVA lineup but may need AI detection can utilize these Synology cameras to build that into the system, even if they don't have a DVA unit. Now, these AI-enabled cameras allow you to do people and vehicle detection, intrusion detection, and instant search options. There's powerful surveillance features built into the camera. It's 5 megapixel, 110-degree field of view, IP67 rating, 30 meters of night vision, and it's NDAA and TAA compliant. There's also tight Synology integration between the Synology cameras and your Synology NAS. You're able to easily add them into the system, update them, do firmware controls, do auto block features for the logins, for example. The Synology cameras are meant for this Synology ecosystem. It can also help reduce the overall detection workload. Now let's take a look at the comparison between Live View Analytics, Deep Video Analytics, and Synology Camera AI to get a sense of what I mean here. Taking a look at this table, you can see Live View Analytics, Deep Video Analytics, and Synology Camera AI have some overlap in terms of their supported algorithms. Where they differ is their overall accuracy, if they support specialized hardware or not, and how they actually go about detection through deep video analytics, deep learning algorithms, or through utilizing other simulation procedures. Now, if we take a look at Live View Analytics, it's supported on all models that support Surveillance Station. However, this general capability means you have less accuracy because it's not GPU driven. On top of that, these detection algorithms for Live View Analytics are Surveillance Station client only, and they actually utilize client PC resources. If you want to have all of this detection analytics offloaded and more accurate and GPU driven, we recommend moving up into the Deep Video Analytics unit. At least have at least one as your recording server, and you'd be able to get some of those advanced detections that you see listed in the supported algorithms. Now, the reason why I said utilizing the DVA and Synology Camera AI is great to use in tandem is because you can see that the DVA and Synology Camera AI have, again, some overlap. You could have the DVA exclusively doing facial recognition or license plate recognition for vehicles and only focus on that, and have the Synology Camera AI deal with general people detection, intrusion detection, etc., thus reducing some of the workload on the valuable resources on the DVA that is fully GPU driven. Now again, you don't have to use the DVA and Synology cameras at the same time. We recommend it because you get the most benefit out of this full Synology Camera AI suite. You have the ability to have facial recognition, license plate recognition, while also offloading some workload to the Synology cameras, reserving the valuable DVA resources for those advanced tasks. However, keep in mind, you can use them separately. You can use the DVA by itself as a recording server in CMS, Or you can use the Synology cameras with just normal Synology NAS, even in a CMS scenario. So you can mix and match what solution is best for you, but to get the benefits of the full suite, you want to use both. Moving on into section 5 about surveillance station clients. First in our lineup of surveillance station clients is the Surveillance Station desktop app. This allows you to access your surveillance instance through your PC. Now you can access Surveillance Station through your web browser, but you get the most performance and the best features by using the desktop client. For example, we can open up our desktop client and do things like Smart Search and Live View Analytics like we saw previously. Next, we have DSCam, and this is going to be the application you use on your mobile device, your Android or iOS system, that allows you to interact with Surveillance Station. You can see live view footage, previous recordings, and you get all of your notifications listed here. What's also really great about this DSCam app is you're actually able to use geofencing utilizing this app. As you can see here, we can institute a home mode policy and have home mode triggered based on if you are located near your home or place of business. And you can also do it by if your device is actually connecting to your business's or your home's Wi-Fi. Now, don't be fooled by the term home mode. This feature is also useful for security personnel, for example, in a business environment. We can have the surveillance station system react to your presence in your environment. Our final client is essentially a mini PC that is a dedicated surveillance station client called the VS600HD. It is VESA mountable and allows you to view up to 50 channels in live view depending on your frames per second settings and resolution. It is NDAA compliant and TAA compliant, and it has dual HDMI output. This is the solution you would utilize if you need to create a security video wall for your security team. So go ahead and reach out to Synology if you need a visual station in your environment. We can help spec how many you would need to meet your needs. So we went over quite a bit today. Let's go ahead and recap and go over next steps. We started off with the core of Synology Surveillance Station, setting up your cameras with the IP camera module, looking at Monitor Center, getting your notifications going, browsing through your recordings, and also getting your users integrated with the correct permissions. We then took a look at multi-site scalability and failover capabilities utilizing Surveillance Station CMS or Central Management System. What this allows you to do is scale up to 1,000 sites and up to 10,000 cameras with a single CMS host, one pane of glass. We then took a look at some advanced features like action rules that allow you to create a customizable solution to meet your organization's needs. We then took a look at the AI detection capabilities with the systems and specialized hardware you want to utilize to do so, like the DVA units and the Synology AI-enabled cameras. Finally, we took a look at the different clients you can utilize to connect to your surveillance station system, using your desktop client, using DSCam, the mobile app, and also Visual Station, which is a dedicated surveillance station client that is VESA mountable, great for video walls for your security team. Now, if you need help past what this webinar provided, go ahead and check out our Synology product online training page. We have hours and hours of video content there on a range of topics. If you need help past what those videos will help you with, go ahead and check out our knowledge base. There's step-by-step guides on a range of topics there too. And lastly, if those resources don't help you, go ahead and check out our inquiry system. You can send our inquiry team a request and we can get your questions answered there. Now, if you're a business user with your own internal IT team, go ahead and reach out to onboarding@synologyamerica.com and we can get your questions answered. If you're a channel partner or reseller, go ahead and reach out to sac_sales@synology.com and we'll get you connected with your technical account manager. And lastly, for our friends across the pond, if you have UK offices or UK clients, go ahead and reach out to our UK team at uk_sales@synology.com. And with that said, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.